Oh boy, that's a lot of numbers. I better turn off the crit and the normal damage. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Zeiss, and on this channel I turn you into an RPG master. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to smash the subscribe button and keep in touch. Now I know this is not like the top build of the season or super S duper tier build or whatever, but it did fine for me. It allowed me to do some of the most interesting things in this season, like for example completing it, and also allowed me to play with some other top hardcore players, like some boss rotations and stuff like that. It also allowed me to completely solo tier 8 Infernal Hordes on hardcore.
Yeah, I think he died. Yeah, he died.
So it's not so bad after all. It kinda does the job. The tech is kinda last season-ish. I've been talking about blood builds since game launch. People have been asking me like accusing me of being a noob because I was using blood search in the end game. I was talking about how blood builds and what makes them great, so on and so forth. But unfortunately for them, what could I say? Rank 3 on the hardcore Necromancer ladder, also rank 4 on the races to 100 on hardcore, destroying the game with the other top hardcore players, so I guess I'm not so bad after all. So let's get into this build and what makes it fun to play. I know this softcore Andy is probably gonna tell me blah blah blah, you don't do damage, but I'm gonna tell you this: on hardcore, the top priority is not dying. Keep taking damage while keep delivering your damage. Right? Not dying, keep taking damage, and keep delivering your damage. You can actually play, right? Because if you die on hardcore, you lose everything and you won't be getting anything, and you wouldn't be caring about your damage after all, right? In this video I'm gonna discuss what I used to make this build work, some alternatives, and you also gonna learn to play it. So because some of you have been asking me how it works, this is gonna answer the questions for you. And some of you even told me they never even seen this build, so looks like it's not very popular. It's kind of my thing, so let's do it now. I'm using the Shaco with cooldown reduction and life master working. I socketed it with Ruby. Now if you don't have the Shaco, you can use legendary helmet with life and cooldown reduction and maximum resource, right? Maximum essence, and you can tamper on it additional life and also chance to stun or crowd control duration or corpse tendril size. Moving on to the chest piece, it's a build enabling unique, the Blood Artisan. It doesn't matter what kind of master working you hit here, just try not to hit Blood Orbs Restore Essence. And that's it. And also aim for the unique power to be picking up 3 Blood Orbs to cast a free Bone Spirit. That's very important. Moving on to the gloves, we have attack speed here and lucky hit, chance to make enemies vulnerable. It's totally fine if we have critical strike chance here or life, but then we're gonna need this lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable on one of our rings. So up to you, depending on where it drops. Then we also get points to core skills, tampering, lucky hit chance to stun, or corpse tendril size or crowd control duration. Just make sure to have lucky hit chance to do whatever crowd control, but I believe stun is the best on one of your gear pieces. I'm using here gore kills. That's the new tech from last season, because Gore Kills is now consuming the blood orbs. You don't need to walk over them anymore. So that's the key part here. That's the other build enabling key part here. I'm also using Temerity pants, also socketed with rubies. The most important things here to look for are the maximum life, damage reduction while healthy, and also the unique power itself. The more barrier it provides, the better. So you don't have to tamper on your gloves, for example, barrier generation, right? Okay, socket with rubies for more life, and as we all know, blood builds, the more life, the more damage, because when you fortify it, it increases your overpowered damage. That's a thing. Moving on to, wait, before that, I'm just gonna say that the blood bond breaches, they can drastically increase your damage, but they're gonna destroy your survivability. So they're kind of an option if you don't have temerity, or you can also use some legendary pants with prudent heart aspect or protecting aspect, granting life, intelligence, and dodge chance. Those are like the best things to get on pants. And you can tamper more life and some other quality of life. Okay, moving on to the boots. We can use here legendary boots with the aspect of metamorphosis, because mobility is really important for this build, and I'm gonna keep talking about mobility when I get to the skill tree as well. So we need life, movement speed, and points to bone spirit. That's it, nothing else. We're gonna tamper here movement speed and some quality of life, like corpse tender of size, or chance to stun, or increased crowd control duration. Like I said, metamorphosis, it's a really good mobility ability, good mobility aspect. It allows for easy repositioning, so we can keep delivering our combo to the enemies. Nothing else works here, I believe. I tried actually the new aspect for Blood Mist. I know, I usually don't use Blood Mist, and I'm kinda arguing against it. But I tried the new aspect, which allows you to evade during Blood Mists, and no, don't use that. Metamorphosis will also make you unstoppable, and it helps with mobility, and it's much better. Doesn't matter that we can get the cooldown of our Blood Mist really low. Doesn't help much. Just saying. Alternative boots, flicker step, but this ultimate damage doesn't help much. And this DR here is kinda not needed, because of all the DR we're gonna get from other places, right? And close enemies, that's not really a thing on this build, so not really a good option. But until you find some good boot, and if you don't have good legendary boots, like this one for example, you can use flicker step. On the weapon, I'm using Doombringer. Masterwork here, the maximum life and damage reduction. That's the most useful thing on the Doombringer. Everything else is kinda meh. And the unique power could be good. It's a good DR, but you know, it is what it is, right? The most important thing is just the plain DR and the maximum life. If we use the elixir here, we're getting 206k life. It's not so bad, but I had other builds with even more life. But this should be quite enough. Moving on to the amulet, that's the really tricky part. For example, I have here life, attack speed to hit the third cup breakpoint on the attack speed. I got Tides of Blood, movement speed, and ultimate cooldown reduction. I have here actually Hardened Bones, which for some reason I didn't get to 38. I have it, I just didn't re-imprint it, but I'm gonna do that later. That's one of the amulets I'm using. Alternatives to use is, for example, the Banished Lord's Talisman, but your survivability will just be gone. Alternative you can use, if you're lucky, Coalesced Blood, Tides of Blood, but not Compound Fracture. If it is with Devotion, it's gonna be way more damage, because Devotion delivers more damage to critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, while Compound Fracture you get a damage boost to your bone skills after critically striking 10 times with them, and it's just for 5 seconds, so it's not so good as evotion. Still does the job, but not very optimal. And we're losing here attack speed, so we're getting on the second attack speed breakpoint. Not so good. You can actually, this can actually break your combo. Okay. Moving on to the rings, which are also very important to make this build work. On both of the rings we need life, attack speed, and critical strike chance, like we see here. Life, attack speed, critical strike chance. Like I said, if you don't have critical strike chance on your glove, if you do have critical strike chance on your glove alongside the attack speed and the core skills, you will need this lucky hit chance to make enemies vulnerable on your rings, and that would be the better option because the gloves can actually provide higher critical strike chance than the rings. But if you can get it up to 90, that's totally fine. You can get 10 more by just blood misting around every now and then. You're gonna need to move anyway, so that's kind of a thing. We're gonna use here the fast blood aspect to reduce the cooldown of the ultimate skill Blood Wave. Unfortunately, I couldn't tamper here critical strike damage, but vulnerable damage also does well. I'm also tampering here Blood Orbs Restore Essence, and it kinda helps me keep the essence up to the top all the time. On the other ring I have maximum life, attack speed, critical strike chance. Like I said, those are the important stuff. Ultimate cooldown and critical strike damage are the tampers here. And I'm using the tidal aspect because it's shooting additional blood waves, and that also means more blood orbs for blood rounds to consume with gore kills. Okay, moving on to the focus. I'm using a focus with Ratma's Chosen aspect. It has life, critical strike chance, and cooldown reduction. I would like to tamper here critical strike damage, but overpowered damage is also fine. Same goes for the gems. The weapon and the focus could be could be socketed with emeralds for more critical strike damage. It's up to you what to do, but we're overpowering like a couple of times per second, so that works too. It's just the other numbers, which are critical strike damage, are all over the place, like we've seen, and overpower not so much. So it's up for you to decide whether you need rubies or emeralds. Anyway, I've tampered here overpowered damage, and I left it so because it's a maximum row 123.3 currently. But if it is critical strike damage or vulnerable damage, it's not gonna be so bad after all either. And the other thing here, which is really important, is if you can't get the attack speed right, you can tamper here from the blood augments blood attack speed, I believe, instead of elemental surge. But since it wrote physical damage, it's scaling with my other damage type, which is physical. I think that's pretty good to get some additional damage boost, damage output on this build. Let's move on to the Book of the Dead. It's pretty straightforward. Skirmishers for critical strike chance, Bone Mages for overpowered damage, Iron Golem for critical strike damage. That's it. Moving on to the skill tree. Pretty much any basic skill you can use while leveling, and you're gonna remove probably the last upgrade, so you can use the point someplace else. Blood Lance with enhanced and supernatural. Living energy here, and imperfectly balanced. Also Hewitt Flesh. Blood Mist for enhanced blood mist, and Dreadful Blood Mist for the critical strike chance, like I said. Bone Prison, we can actually use only those two upgrades. If we get the cooldowns right, we don't necessarily need this one, right? Then Decrepify and Amplified Damage. Decrepified with enhanced and abhorrent. Moving on here to the blood passives, we're gonna need 1 point here, 3 points on transfusion, more blood orbs. Those are the two important ones. Colorless blood, more damage, and Tides of Blood, even more damage. 1 point on Drain Vitality is enough to be perma-fortified, pretty much. But we can also use Necrotic Carapace, doesn't matter, because we're delivering here lots of corpses all the time, with Hued Flesh. On Corpse Tendrils I'm using the upgrade Blighted, because I have ways to make enemies vulnerable. If you don't have the lucky hit to make enemies vulnerable, you can use Plague Corpse Tendrils, but make sure to constantly use Corpse Tendrils. Otherwise, all the vulnerable damage bonuses just don't make sense, right? Okay, so we got 2 things which help with cooldown, 3 things actually, right? 4 things, pretty decent. It's gonna be 5 things, we'll see. 6 things. Okay, Blood Wave with both upgrades. I'm Inspiring Leader, Standalone, and Memento Mori, because we're not using any minions. Bone Prison is no longer counting as minions, so we're totally fine to use Standalone. And one of the other important things is Ratma's Vigor. It now finally works with Tides of Blood. That's also last season tech. So as you probably saw earlier, we're overpowering quite a lot. And you can see here, check on the skills cut, gain Blood Artisan, gain Ratma's Vigor, gain Blood Artisan, gain Ratma's Vigor. You see it here in the middle, above the skills. So it works. Okay, moving on to the Paragon board. I modified it a bit, but that's basically my Paragon board from last season Blood builds. On the first board here I am using Gravekeeper, and I am getting both the rare nodes to get the boost. I'll get to why I swapped this glyph in a bit when I get to the third board. On the second board I'm using Corporeal. The board is called Bloodbath. We're getting here the life and also the resistances and dots from DR from dots. Then moving to the right and getting Amplify here. The board is called Flesh Eater, but we're not using the legendary power because we're not consuming corpses. But if you, for some stupid reason, decide to play this build with Sacrilegious Soul, you gotta use the Flesh Eater, because then Corpse Tendrils counts as consuming corpses, okay? If you can get the cooldowns right with that ring, feel free to do so. Anyway, now the thing here is, I placed 1 more point on damage to elite, so that's 20, 20, 20, 60, right? And 32, that makes it, what, 92. Previously, I had here Amplify, and I had here Gravekeeper without these nodes, without these nodes, and going this path and getting those 2 intelligences and without this node. Now, why did I do that? Because I'm getting more damage to elites this way. It's 92, and if we use Gravekeeper here, we're gonna get what? 72, and that's just 10 and 10, it's just 10, and without this point, because we'll not be able to use this point, we're not gonna be getting so much damage to elites. Why is this version currently not so good? Because if you get minus resistances on the Infernal Hordes, your resistance is gonna be demolished, because it's not gonna be enough. So the other version might be better. Okay. Anyway, let's move on here. I'm moving on to the next board. I'm using the Essence Glyph, and the board is called Scent of Death. Please note we are not using here any of the ultimate damage nodes. That's also an option, but it allows for taking a bit more important nodes here on the next board, which is with the Dominate Glyph, and the board is Blood Begets Blood. And it allows us to take this additional damage after picking Blood Orb, but since it's scaling drastically with Blood Begets Blood and also with Bloodbath, it makes it a little bit better to actually not use the ultimate damage nodes. Okay, then we are moving to Bone Graft, but without using the Bone Graft legendary power because it's very far away. We're gonna have to spend a lot points to get it. And why we're not getting it is because what it says is hitting enemies with bone skills, which in this case is bone spirit, increases your damage by 1% and your maximum essence by 2 for 8 seconds. Stacks up to, oh, my bad. Stacks up to 8 times, so that stacks to 8 times increased damage multiplicatively and 16 maximum essence. Since we don't have essence problem, and the dominate glyph is the much better thing to get here. It's more overpowered damage, but when you overpower an enemy, all damage they take from you and your minions, but we don't use minions here, is increased by 12% for 5 seconds, which is kind of the better thing to get. And this also allows us to use here exploit and get even one more glyph to make it a total of 7. And the glyph here is Undaunted for additional damage reduction and additional additive damage. The board here is Wither. So that's pretty much the Paragon board. I'm gonna temporarily destroy it a little bit so you can see the other setup I've been using here if using Amplify, right? Amplify. And we're gonna respect those nodes and use the old route I was talking about a little bit earlier, so you can have an idea what it was, so it's not just talk. Okay, so it goes like this. Okay, that's it. That's the old route, and here we're gonna use, where is it? Gravekeeper. Okay, and in this case not using those, but we can use this. So this will allow for 72 and 8, that's 80, 8, that's 90, 98. Damn, that was better, but I was not using those points. Yeah, that's why. I was not using those points, and we can use this one here. So we have 7 more points, and we can actually get this one too. Okay, that's another not so badish setup. But let's see, we have a resistance problem, right? So we can't necessarily use those. Let's pick this one. What happens is we still have the resistance problem, right? Okay. You see my point, right? Just getting a little bit more damage can produce other problems. So we're gonna have to solve it like this, for example. Like this. Yeah, okay, it's solved. It's still solved. Let's see, is it still solved? Yeah, it's still solved. We might want to overcap though for that particular reason I was talking about. But basically, you should be getting the idea. It's okay. Does this work? Yeah, it works. You can also get the armor here to cap the armor instead. Yep, now we have capped armor. You can play like this however you want. Just make sure to cap the defenses, and it's gonna work definitely. Okay, the other thing we can get here is more overpower. That's it. Let's see. This one works. This one works. Now this one doesn't work. Okay. Then less overpower. And get this dex. Let's verify everything again. That's not such a bad option, right? Amplify, we get more DR, life works, this one works, this one works, this one works. Okay, that's some fine tuning you can play around with and see if it's better for you. I just did it while recording this video to demonstrate some slight changes and how they can affect the build and what the emergent effect of it could be, right? You change something, you need to, it produces other problems to solve. Probably not so hard. Okay, so we covered up the gear, we covered the Book of the Dead, we covered the skill tree, we covered the Paragon. So what's the build mechanic? Just spam Blood Wave and Blood Lance, and every now and then curse, use tendrils when you need to group the enemies so the Blood Waves hit them, and that's basically it. You're just mostly gonna spam Blood Wave and Blood Lance. How to do this on controller? Surprise! Just hold those two buttons and that's it. It's automatically doing everything, and you can every now and then curse, you can every now and then use Scorch Tendrils, you can every now and then also use Prison. If you need mobility, just evade, reposition, right, and keep shooting. Or if it's like very dangerous for some reason, just Blood Mist out of it, reposition, keep shooting. Okay guys, I think that pretty much covered everything about this build. So for those of you who are asking about it, I hope this explains it all. If it didn't, feel free to ask in the comments. For those of you who didn't know this build existed, because I had this case, like even on the last stream people were asking me, or some of the people I grouped with, they were like, oh, I've never seen a Bloodwave build. Well, here it is. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful to you. And again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer as soon as possible. There's not much more to add here, so that's gonna be it for now. I'm gonna go out, prepare for my next live stream. Hopefully I see you there. Zeiss out. Take care.